Now it's time for our next TED Talk, Joydeep Roy. Joydeep Roy is the former CEO of L&T General Insurance and an inspiring entrepreneur in his own regard. He brings with him stirring and empowering thoughts on the importance of taking risks in the corporate sector, its relation to entrepreneurship, and its role in our personal lives. At our event, he will be sharing the importance of stepping out of a secure, slow, and predictable lives and stepping out to take risks and achieve success in this rapidly changing world through his talk, Risk, the Only Recipe for Success. Everyone, please give a huge round of applause to Mr. Joydeep Roy.
I was looking for inspiration as I was coming to the school on the Western Express Highway, because that's when you can see a lot of risk-taking. And I was very, very surprised because today, of all days, I couldn't see too many people on the two-wheelers without helmets. So maybe people understood that I was looking out for inspirations for risk-taking, and all I could see is a risk-averse Mumbai for a change. Well, that's a great thing if it happens. But coming back to the topic, I'm actually surprised why people would be at all interested in a topic which is talking about risk-taking. Because risk is something that we take every step of the life, every time, every day. The biggest risk that we take every day, and all of you do that, is to go to sleep. Biologically, there is no guarantee that you are going to wake up next morning. That's the nearest you come to oblivion. Of course, we risk everything when we step out. We risk everything when we start speaking, when we risk everything that when we try something new. And the biggest fear that we try to face in our lives, which is the fear of rejection or the fear of ridicule. So there was a study recently about last year in the University College London, which looked at a lot of youngsters and looked at people who are from the age group of about, say, 6 to 21, and actually beyond also. And it found that the age at which people are wired, genetically wired for taking the maximum risks is 14. Because it's at that age, the adolescent age, that people are, you guys are no longer a child then. People are, they can weigh pros and cons of an option. They can take so-called calculated risk. And at the same time, they welcome the thrill of taking a risk, which gradually wears out. So why is it that our entire society, our structure, our education, parental practices, and all of us as a whole, human race, we try to put people at age 14 into something which is very straight-laced and try to eliminate risks? Every system, everything is trying to put everybody in a path to eliminate risks. Right from your choice of education, right from choice of career, right from the things to do, things not to do. All the time we hear, no, it can't be done, no, it shouldn't be done, it is not done this way. Let's look back at my life, for example. Like everybody else, at age 13, I was thrilled when I was an exhibited artist, and my artwork was exhibited. But the very thought of pursuing art as a career was anathema to everybody around me. Not only my parents, but everybody. It was not even a thought, let's say. More than 35 years back, it was something which would have been a sacrilege to even say that art can be a career. Ironically, a very close friend of mine was inspired by that, and today he is a renowned artist in US. And he has made the acknowledgement later on to me. Well, I followed the beaten path. I was told that if you do not become an engineer, then people will assume you have not got engineering entrance exams and you have not cleared, and etc. And I went through. Halfway through my engineering course, I figured out this is not the life that I want. So, and that's supposed to be something very different those days. Found out what options there were, and I found something called an IIM, Indian Institute of Management, got into it, became an MBA, which is a packaged product for the corporate world. Got into my first job in a consumer non-durable company, Godrej, and then I got the freedom to take my own risks. And the first risk I took again, overcoming a bit of a fear of ridicule, is that I left my job after 11 months of service, 1 month before I was supposed to be so-called confirmed in the job. And a lot of people told me, by the way, if you leave at this stage, people will think you've not got confirmed. Well, I didn't listen to them, thankfully, and got to then learn entrepreneurial job, if there's such a word, in a medium small company those days in information technology called Wipro. It was very small those days. So on and so forth, continued in a corporate career, and if I look back, it is in those phases when I was very comfortable or achieved a lot of stuff, as well as become a little comfortable, is when I sought out new challenges. So therefore, risk-taking is something which I must have resented not being able to take the risk as I look back, and therefore went ahead and took a lot of risks in career thereafter. Let's define risk at this point of time. What is risk? Well, I would say risk is restricted information and scant knowledge, R-I-S-K. Because if we had full information, if we have today exact information as to what's going to happen in the future, what's going to happen in our lives, what's going to happen tomorrow, then there's no risk. There's absolutely no risk in taking a decision. And this was illustrated by a comment by Mr. Azim Premji when I asked him 21 years back in a particular discussion about decision making, that what do you consider as decision making, good decision making? It seemed to me that from managerial or leadership candidates in a corporate world, people were looking for good, fast decision making, good decision making. So I innocuously asked this question. He thought for a moment, and he said, I would consider myself a good decision maker if 7 out of my decisions, out of 10, 7 out of 10 decisions of mine were proved to be correct. Any more would mean that I am dilly-dallying and I'm procrastinating and I'm not taking the decisions on time till every information, everything became so clear, then you're just following the information. You're not being a leader. So risk-taking, to my mind, is to do something without the certainty of what's going to happen. Let's come to some corporate examples. Well, it is also very funny that while we educate people to mitigate risk and eliminate risk, even in the case of investment, you'll hear some people saying we eliminate all risk. We ultimately admire those people who take the risks. Right from the days of the seafaring navigators who discovered countries, but they never knew what they're going to find. When they went out in the seas, they never knew whether they're going to come back. To people who expanded territory by warfare, people who went on and created works of art, people who adopted careers of art, as well as people who tried to achieve peace. So let's look at examples in the corporate world. Well-known examples. 100 years back, Henry Ford turned the entire manufacturing paradigm upside down by introducing mass production. Those were the days when people were accustomed to having custom-made, one at a time, everything. The Industrial Revolution was supposed to have created machinery, but the processes were one at a time. So what it did revolutionize the entire industry for everything, right? From soaps to cars to any object that was manufactured for close to 70, 80 years, till we had another stagnation. So look at the personal computer market, what happened at the turn of the century. Suddenly people found themselves struggling with each other because the one byproduct of that mass production is that you tend to build up stocks. You build ahead of time, ahead of demand. So people are building up stocks. So IBM and HP and Dell and everybody was fighting with each other. And that is when Dell took the courageous decision of going back, saying, I'll make to order. The internet was there. And they decided to make to order. So people could just say, this is the kind of PC I want, and that one piece will come out of their factory, and they wired their factory in such a fashion that it was still economically viable. And within 4 years, Dell went from number 7 manufacturer to number 1 of PCs. Well, these are stories of success. Let's see what happens to those who do not take that risk. Most well-known one is, of course, Xerox. They had the graphic user interface introduced to them by Steve Jobs, no other, and they decided there's no market for it. So Apple happened. In the mid-90s, there was a search engine called Alta Vista. Some of you would not have been born at that time, but Alta Vista had a monopoly in search engine. We used to go to Alta Vista and search everything. Close to the turn of the century, they decided that it's not a money-making game and it's not going to turn in revenues, and Google happened. Rio decided to close off their memory-based MP3 player, and iPod happened. Western Union gave up their pursuit of credit cards, and a Visa, Master, and Diners happened. So people take risks in various ways, and there are different kinds of risks. Risks can be calculated, they can be reckless, like the ones I mentioned at the beginning of the road risks. But it is only by taking risks that a society progresses and wealth, prosperity, economy grows. Let us look at what happens to an individual's life. Typically, peer pressure plays a lot of part, right? And if supported by peer pressure, one takes a lot of risks. For example, if 7 of you go to a particular tower and four of them are going for bungee jumping, and if you feel it's risky, but if 4 have gone and done it, you feel that it is less risky. So the beaten path, however risky or intrinsically risky the act might be, the beaten path seems to be less riskier. So the salvation of a society, salvation of an economy is always through taking risks. Innovation is a word that's bandied about a lot. But innovation does not happen without taking risks. Without taking that one step forward where all the answers are not known, one will not arrive at the goal. So, how does one really go about taking risks? Is there a science to it? Is it an art? Is it something that has to be done willy-nilly without paying heed to any kind of a discipline? Well, from personal experience, I have seen, from my own experience as well as others, that there is a science to risk-taking. First of all, the goal must be clear. You can't just get out of the road saying, I will try to cross the road, and I don't know where am I headed for. And I can't even tell whether I have arrived, and therefore there's no success attached to it or the fun of success, so therefore the goal has to be clear. So if your life goals are clear, the first big risk that you can take is to write them down. A study showed, from a study which went on from 1960 to 1985 in the class of 60 of Harvard, that the people who had written down goals, which were only 3% of the people in 1960, were worth many, many times over in the net worth in 1985 than the rest of the 97% of the people. So it's important to have written down goals. And just writing down is not enough. You have to sort of tell everybody, at least into near and dear ones. And there is a fear of not achieving them, and that fear has to be overcome. So if you're clear about your life goals, even if they do not stretch too long, even if they're 10, 15 years down the line, it's important to write them down. It's important also to write down what sacrifices are you prepared to make to achieve those goals, because that is going to help you take those risks. It is also important to write down when do you want those goals to happen. Once you have done these, and if you really, really seriously look at them every now and then, certain decisions to make, even with inadequate information, become very, very clear. Your priorities become clear, and then risk-taking becomes that much easier. So I actually wrote down my goals somewhere around 1997, and those goals were centered around what I want to do at the age of 35, what I want to do at the age of 42, what I want to do at the age of 47. What happens is when you write those goals down, you start working towards those, and then you take the right risks. Risks also have to be taken properly. I can't underline the fact enough that risk-taking is not a reckless way of life. Risk-taking is not an absolutely carefree approach or a completely irresponsible approach to life. risk-taking is a very constructive way of trying to arrive at answers before others find them, or before the opportunities just go away. So if you look closer home, India today is poised for growth. It is poised for massive growth because of the demographic dividend. Whatever may happen, we are a coupled world, no doubt. Changes in China, changes in Spain affect us, the Eurozone affects us, but end of the day, we are the only country in the world with such a sizable population of work, sort of in the working zone. Our average age being 27.2, we are the second youngest country in the world, and next only to Philippines. And our working population, between the age between 18 to 50 is the maximum. 67% of the population technically can work to feed 100. And exactly the opposite is true for a country like UK, where much lesser people are working to feed the children and the retired who are living too long, and therefore the pensions have to be funded by the entire working age band. So demographically, and we are going to stay like this for the next 15 years at least. So we have an amazing opportunity for the Indian youth. All of you are on the cusp of a great opportunity. But there's a huge risk. And the risk is that we are also one of the largest working populations in the world, which are on a scale of employability, we are among the lowest. That's because the education system creates educated people, but not necessarily skilled people. And the economy grows with skills. Economy does not grow with labor. As we have figured out through our entire IT revolution, companies which have intellectual property in IT have earned far more, are worth far more than the companies which just give IT labor. So, there are a lot of efforts on to increase the skills. National Skills Development Corporation has been formed. So, a lot of efforts will go on, but what I'll tell you is that personally, with a goal, what you do is that you eliminate some of your other options, take a risk, you take a punt, you don't keep all options open, and then more and more you get skilled in that area. If somebody's goal is to become a doctor, then that person is actually trying to educate oneself to be a medical professional, and therefore, naturally speaking, out of all the information coming in, some natural filtering will happen, and there will be a bias towards a particular profession or a particular area of interest. If you want to be an entrepreneur, similarly, you have to have a goal. You have to have an absolute goal of which problem of humanity are you trying to solve, and have a single-minded approach. You can't hedge your bet saying, I'll do this, I'll do that also, I'll do that. If you do that, then you again tend to defray your own efforts. So, poised as we are, poised as you are with your age group, I think the world is your oyster. Just remember that behind everything, behind every human endeavor, forever, or any remarkable and memorable endeavor, there has always been a risk taker. So, coming here to speak itself was a risk, because as the saying goes, it's good to sometimes, keep your mouth shut and appear to be a fool than to open it and confirm the fact. So I hope you have found what you were wanting to find from this speech and enjoyed the afternoon. Thank you very much.